NASCAR short track superstar Rusty Wallace. 55 NASCAR Cup Series victories, 25 of which came on short tracks. The 1989 Cup Series Championship. The 1991 IROC Series Championship. Only one driver put up statistics like these, and his name is Rusty Wallace. From a very young age, like most drivers, Rusty Wallace caught the racing bug. After his mother had to go to court to get permission for him to compete, this due to the fact Wallace was too young, once he got permission and started racing, he began winning. In fact, winning his first heat race he'd ever run, in his debut at Lake Hill Speedway, racing all over Florida, winning a pair of track championships along the way, being named Central Racing Association Rookie of the Year in 1973. From 1974 through 1978, Wallace established himself as a frequent winner on the Midwest short tracks, winning over 200 feature races. By 1979, Rusty made it to the United States Auto Club, or USAC, stock cars, winning Rookie of the Year honors, winning twice and finishing third in final series point standings, behind A.J. Foyt and Bay Darnell. In 1981, Rusty had another strong season in USAC, scoring 2 wins and 9 top 10s, finishing second in final USAC stock car point standings, behind Joe Ruttman. As far as Rusty's first big break into the NASCAR circuit, that came in 1980, when his future team owner, Roger Penske, gave him the opportunity to drive his number 16 Chevrolet on March 16, 1980, at Atlanta Motor Speedway, qualifying a solid 9th and finishing a strong 2nd. He ran this strong in his Cup Series debut, making one more Cup Series start for Penske at Charlotte in the fall that same season, finishing 14th. Over the next couple years, Wallace would continue to make occasional starts in the Cup Series, making 2 starts in Ron Benefield's number 98 Pontiac. His best start was 19th and his best finish was 21st, both coming at Talladega in the summer, also making 5 starts in John Child's number 72 Buick. Wallace's best start was 19th twice at Charlotte in the fall of 1981 and Daytona in the spring of 1982. His best finish on the number 72 was 6th at Charlotte in the fall of 1981. On October 3, 1982, Wallace won the Winchester 400 after leading 75 laps. For the 1983 season, Wallace focused solely on the American Speed Association, running the full schedule, competing against future stars such as Mark Martin, Alan Kulwicki, and Dick Trickle. Rusty was able to drive his number 66 Charles Tire Pontiac to 3 wins in the 1983 ASA Championship. Finally able to secure a full-time ride in the NASCAR Cup Series starting in 1984, behind the wheel of Cliff Stewart's number 88 Gatorade Pontiac. Darrell Bryant served as his crew chief starting in 84. He qualified for all the races and basically slowly climbed from about 20th in points up to 14th by season's end, showing flashes of the success he would eventually find. Rusty's best start was 5th at Richmond in the spring, and his best finish was 4th at Darlington in the fall. Overall, in 30 starts, Wallace scored 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s, finishing 14th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings, being named 1984 NASCAR Cup Series Rookie of the Year. Remaining with the Cliff Stewart race team again for the 1985 season, but this time they switched the number from the 88 to the number 2, and Allio replaced Gatorade as the team's sponsor. Wallace began the season pretty solid, scoring 2 top 5s and 5 top 10s in the first 8 races. From there, the team was plagued with engine issues, and slowly fell out of the top 15 in points by season's end. Wallace's best start was 6th twice at Richmond and Rockingham in the spring, and his best finish was 5th twice at Bristol and Darlington in the spring. Overall, in 28 starts, Wallace scored 2 top 5s and 8 top 10s, finishing 19th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings, as well as winning the All-American 400, a late model event held at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, leaving the Cliff Stewart race team at the conclusion of the 1985 season. Because a better ride with Blue Max Racing opened up, so Wallace seized the opportunity, when Tim Richmond moved to Hendrick Motorsports. In a self-owned number 66 Pontiac and Oldsmobile, Rusty made the first 4 Busch Series starts of his career. His best start was 1st in his debut race at Daytona in the spring. His best finish was 2nd at Darlington in the late summer. Overall, in 4 Busch Series starts, Wallace scored 1 pole, 0 wins, 3 top 5s, and 3 top 10s. Joining drag racer Raymond Beadle's Blue MAXX Racing behind the wheel of the team's number 27 Allio Pontiac full-time, Barry Dotson became Rusty's crew chief starting in 1986, spending literally every single week of the 1986 season inside the top 10 in point standings. Wallace was able to score his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory at Bristol in the spring. Wallace's best start was 4th at Watkins Glen in the summer. His best finish was 1st twice, at Bristol in the spring and Martinsville in the fall. Overall, in 29 starts, Wallace scored 2 wins, 4 top 5s, and 16 top 10s, finishing 6th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Then in the Busch Series, Rusty made 3 more starts in his self-owned number 66 Allio Pontiac. His best start was 12th at Daytona in the spring, and his best finish was 4th at Charlotte in the spring. Overall, in 3 Busch Series starts, Wallace scored 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s. Backed by new sponsor Kodiak, Rusty Wallace and that Blue MAXX Racing number 27 Pontiac crew had another strong season in 1987. After experiencing engine issues in the season-opening Daytona 500, Rusty was able to right the ship, so to speak, climbing into the top 10 in points by race 4, and remaining there for the rest of the season. His best start was 1st in Michigan in the summer. This was the first pole that Wallace had ever won in the Cup Series. Rusty's best finish was 1st twice, at Watkins Glen in the summer and Riverside in the fall. Overall, in 29 starts, Wallace scored 1 pole, 2 wins, 9 top 5s, and 16 top 10s, finishing 5th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. In 1987, Wallace made the most Busch Series starts that he would ever make in a single season, 12. 9 behind the wheel of Grover Sugart's number 90 Buicks and Chevrolets, and 3 behind the wheel of Blue MAXX Racing's number 72 Pontiac. His best start was 1st at Road Atlanta in the summer, in that number 90. His best finish was 3rd at Darlington in the fall in that number 72. Overall, in 12 Busch Series starts, Wallace scored 1 pole, 0 wins, 3 top 5s, and 4 top 10s. Throughout the previous couple seasons, Rusty Wallace had proved that not only did he belong in the NASCAR Cup Series, but that he could win and compete weekly with the series' top teams. He and that Blue MAXX Racing number 27 Pontiac race team took things to another level starting in 1988, winning more races than anybody in the Cup Series in 88, even leading series point standings for 8 consecutive weeks during the summer. Rusty's best start was 1st twice, at Martinsville and Atlanta in the fall. His best finish was 1st 6 times, including 4 of the final 5 races of the 88 season, along with the final Cup Series race ever run at Riverside International Raceway. So Wallace won at Riverside in Michigan in the summer, and Charlotte, North Wilkesboro, Rockingham, and Atlanta in the fall. Overall, in 29 starts, Rusty scored 2 poles, 6 wins, 19 top 5s, and 23 top 10s, finishing 2nd in NASCAR Cup Series point standings to Austin Bill from Dawsonville, Bill Elliott. Back in the Busch Series, Wallace made 6 starts, 3 in Blue MAXX Racing's number 72, and 3 in his cell phone number 66. His best start was 4th twice, at Darlington and Charlotte in the fall, driving his cell phone number 66. His best finish was 8th at Darlington in the spring, driving Blue MAXX number 72. Overall, in 6 Busch Series starts, Wallace scored 3 top 10s. The 1989 NASCAR Cup Series season was another very strong season for the number 27 boys and Rusty Wallace. The major issue was that the team overspent to keep their race car going fast. Therefore, Rick Hendrick, yes, that Rick Hendrick, loaned Blue MAXX Racing owner Raymond Beadle $400,000 to keep in the fight for the championship. Rusty's best start was 1st 4 times, at Rockingham and North Wilkesboro in the spring, then Sonoma and Pocono in the summer. His best finish was 1st 6 times, at both Richmond races, at Rockingham and Bristol in the spring, then Watkins Glen and Michigan in the summer. Overall, in 29 starts, Rusty Wallace scored 4 poles, 6 wins, 13 top 5s, and 20 top 10s, winning the 1989 NASCAR Cup Series championship. Also in the Cup Series All-Star race, Rusty and Darrell Waltrip ended up tangling for the victory, with Wallace spinning out Waltrip on the final lap in the final segment, winning the $200,000 in the process. This really made the race fans mad at Wallace for quite a while. Back in the Busch Series, Wallace made 7 starts behind the wheel of a number 72 Pontiac for MAXX Racing. His best start was second at Charlotte in the fall. His best finish was second at Daytona in the spring. Overall, in 7 starts, Wallace scored 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s. 1989 was the first season that Wallace was invited to run the IROC Series, a series where top drivers from several different racing series all competed in exactly equally prepared race cars in a 4-race series. Rusty's best finish was first at Daytona in the spring. Overall, in 4 starts, Wallace scored 1 win, 3 top 5s, and 4 top 10s, finishing 3rd in final IROC Series point standings. Even with all the controversy between the two, Wallace continued to drive for Beetle's MAXX Racing in 1990, behind the wheel of a number 27 Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac. Barry Dodson began the season as Wallace's crew chief, until race 23 at Dover, when Jimmy Maycar took over for him. Rusty's best start was first twice, at Phoenix and Atlanta in the fall. His best finish was first twice, at Charlotte in the spring and Sonoma in the summer. Overall, in 29 starts, Wallace scored 2 poles, 2 wins, 9 top 5s, and 16 top 10s, finishing 6th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Once again, Rick Hendrick helped fund the race team to finish out the 1990 season, and at the conclusion of the season, Rusty Wallace and sponsor Miller Genuine Draft moved on to the brand new Roger Penske-owned Penske Racing South. In the IROC Series, Wallace ran all 3 races in the season. His best finish was 6th in Michigan. Overall, in 3 starts, Wallace scored 3 top 10s, finishing 8th in final IROC Series point standings. Debuting the brand new number 2 Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac at Daytona in the spring of 1991. The first couple years, the new Penske team were still really finding their feet. Jimmy Maycar began the 1991 season as Wallace's crew chief until Eddie Dickerson took over the position until race 18 at Watkins Glen in 1992, when Buddy Parrott took over. For a brand new team, they were fast, but they also broke a fair amount in 1991 and 92. This was reflected in Rusty's points performances during these seasons. From only about 7 races into the 1991 season on that year, Wallace set between 8th and 12th in point standings. Actually, only breaking into the top 10 for 2 weeks late in the year in 1992. Wallace's best start was first 3 times, at Bristol in the spring and Richmond in the fall of 1991, then Phoenix in the fall of 1992. His best finish was first also 3 times, at Bristol in the spring and Pocono in the summer of 1991, then Richmond in the fall of 1992. Overall, in 58 starts, Wallace scored 3 poles, 3 wins, 14 top 5s, and 26 top 10s, with the best points finish at 10th in 1991. In the IROC Series, Rusty made 8 starts during this time. His best finish was first 3 times, at Talladega, Michigan, and Watkins Glen. Overall, in 8 starts, Wallace scored 3 wins, 5 top 5s, and 8 top 10s, winning the 1991 IROC Series Championship. After a couple seasons together as a team, Rusty and that number 2 Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac really had a breakout season in 1993, spending all but 2 weeks inside the top 5 and all but 3 weeks inside the top 3 in point standings during the season. On the final lap of the Winston 500 at Talladega in May, Dale Earnhardt bumped the back of Rusty's number 2, sending it spinning, then airborne, happening right at the start-finish line on the final lap, allowed Wallace to still cross the finish line in 6th position. Rusty did sustain a concussion and a broken wrist in the accident. Other than that, he was alright, and he did go back to racing the following week. This accident is actually the reason why root flaps were created. Rusty's best start was first 3 times, at Atlanta and Bristol in the spring, then Dover in the fall. His best finish was first 10 times, at both races at Rockingham and North Wilkesboro, Bristol and Martinsville in the spring, Loudon in the summer, Richmond, Dover, and Atlanta in the fall. Overall, in 30 starts, Wallace scored 3 poles, 10 wins, 19 top 5s, and 21 top 10s, finishing 2nd in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Returning to the Busch Series for the first time in several seasons, making a one-off start for Roger Penske at the Milwaukee Mile, behind the wheel was number 21, Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac, starting 21st and finishing 33rd, after transmission trouble ended his race early on lap 53. only running one IROC Series race at Darlington, finishing 4th. Finishing runner-up to Dale Earnhardt the previous season in series point standings, in 1994, Wallace had another strong season, but again could not keep pace with Earnhardt and that Richard Childress racing bunch. Like he would the remainder of his professional stock car racing career, Rusty Wallace would drive that Penske Racing number 2 once again in 94. And of course he did after such a strong 1993. Even with such a strong season the year before, the team made a manufacturer switch from Pontiac to Ford. After a crash in the Daytona 500 put him in a points hole early, Wallace dug his way out of it. By the Coca-Cola 600 in May, he was up to 3rd in points, and would basically stay there for the rest of the season. Rusty's best start was first twice, at Martinsville in the spring and Pocono in the early summer. His best finish was first 8 times, at both Martinsville and Dover races. Rockingham in the spring, Pocono and Michigan in the summer, then Bristol in the fall. Leading an incredible 2,142 laps. Overall, in 31 starts, Wallace scored 2 poles, 8 wins, 17 top 5s, and 20 top 10s, finishing 3rd in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. As far as the IROC Series, Rusty returned to running the series full-time in 94. His best finish was 2nd at Darlington. Overall, he scored 2 top 5s and 4 top 10s, finishing 3rd in final IROC Series point standings. For the 1995 NASCAR Cup Series season, Rusty Wallace got a brand new crew chief in Robin Pemberton. He took over for Buddy Parrott. This season wasn't necessarily bad for Wallace, it just wasn't near the pace of the previous couple seasons. His best start was 3rd at Richmond in the spring, and his best finish was 1st twice at Martinsville in the spring and Richmond in the fall. Overall, in 31 starts, Wallace scored 2 wins, 15 top 5s, and 19 top 10s, finishing 5th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Back in the IROC Series, Wallace's best finish was 5th at Daytona. Overall, in 4 IROC Series starts, Wallace scored 1 top 5 and 4 top 10s, finishing 9th in final IROC Series point standings. The following season, in 1996, Wallace in that Miller Genuine Draft number 2 Ford was very fast at times, making it to the top 10 in points for the first time by race 6 in Bristol, and for good by race 8 in Martinsville. Rusty's best start was 2nd in Martinsville in the fall, and his best finish was 1st 5 times at Martinsville and Sonoma in the spring, Michigan and Pocono in the summer, then Bristol in the late summer. Overall, in 31 starts, Wallace scored 5 wins, 8 top 5s, and 18 top 10s, finishing 7th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings. Also winning the NASCAR Thunder Special in Suzuka, Japan, an exhibition race held overseas. Rusty Wallace made the only Craftsman Truck Series start he would ever make in his career in 96 at Nazareth, behind the wheel of Roger Penske's number 22 Miller Racing Ford, starting 7th and finishing 9th. Also running the IROC Series for the final time for a few seasons. His best finish was 4th at Charlotte. Overall, in 4 starts, Rusty scored 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s, finishing 11th in final IROC Series point standings. Over the next several seasons, from 1997 through 2000, several things happened. Rusty began to win at a much slower rate. Starting in 1998, Team Penske expanded to a 2-car operation, with Jeremy Mayfield becoming his teammate, and really the two didn't get along all that well. And the sport had begun to evolve at a very quick rate. With the exception of 1998, the other 3 seasons, Wallace found himself in the bottom part of the top 10 in point standings. Rusty's best start was 1st, 18 times, at Bristol in the spring of 1997, both Bristol races in 98, Dover in the early summer, and Richmond in the fall of 98, Bristol in the spring, Watkins Glen in the late summer, then Loudon and Dover in the fall of 99, Rockingham, Martinsville, and Richmond in the spring of 2000, Dover, Pocono, Sonoma, Loudon, and Bristol in the summer, then Phoenix in the fall of 2000. His best finish was 1st 7 times, at Richmond in the spring of 97, at Phoenix in the fall of 98, Bristol in the spring of 99, both Bristol races, Pocono and Michigan in the summer of 2000. Overall, in 133 NASCAR Cup Series starts, Wallace scored 18 poles, 7 wins, 42 top 5s, and 69 top 10s, with the best points finish of 4th in 1998. Also being named one of NASCAR's 50 greatest drivers in '98. Returning to the Busch Series in '97, making a one-off start at California Speedway for Roger Penske, behind the wheel of a number 2 Miller Lite Ford, starting 37th and finishing 21st. Also returning to the IROC Series in 1999. His best finish between the 1999 and 2000 seasons was second at Talladega in '99. Overall, in 8 IROC Series starts, Wallace scored 4 top 5s and 8 top 10s, with the best points finish of 4th in '99. The 2000 season was Rusty's final year he would ever compete in IROC. In 2001, Wallace lost his close friend Dale Earnhardt in a final lap accident in the Daytona 500, spending all but 1 week inside the top 10 in point standings throughout the season. Rusty's best start was second, 4 times, at both Richmond races, Martinsville in the spring and Sonoma in the summer. His best finish was first at California in the spring. Overall, in 36 starts, Wallace scored 1 win, 8 top 5s, and 14 top 10s, finishing 7th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings, falling off a bit each season progressively from 2002 through 2004, remaining behind the wheel of that Miller Lite number 2 Ford, then Dodge, starting in 2003. Ryan Newman also took over as his new teammate starting in 2002. Billy Wilburn took over as his new crew chief starting in 2002. Then in 2004, Larry Carter took over as his crew chief. Wallace's best start was first at Dover in the fall of 2002. His best finish was first in Martinsville in the spring of 2004. Overall, in 108 starts, Rusty scored 1 pole, 1 win, 12 top 5s, and 40 top 10s, with the best points finish of 7th in 2002, returning to the Busch Series in 2004 for the first time in 7 years, making 2 starts behind the wheel of Rusty's self-owned number 66 Duraflame Dodge. His best start was 14th at Phoenix in the fall, and his best finish was 6th at Michigan in the late summer. Overall, in 2 Busch Series starts, Wallace scored 2 top 10s. The final NASCAR Cup Series season that Rusty Wallace would race in the series was 2005, improving quite a bit for his farewell season, even qualifying for his only chase. Seeding a strong 3rd, but a difficult chase down the line saw him fade as it went. Rusty's best start was 3rd twice, at Bristol in the spring and Martinsville in the fall. His best finish was 2nd at Pocono in the summer. Overall, in 36 starts, Wallace scored 8 top 5s and 17 top 10s, finishing 8th in final NASCAR Cup Series point standings, also making the final 6 Busch Series starts of his career, behind the wheel of his self-owned number 64 Dodge. Rusty's best start was 7th at Kentucky in the summer, and his best finish was 6th in Mexico City in the spring. Overall, in 6 Busch Series starts, Wallace scored 2 top 10s, also running the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona in 2006, running a number 2 Pontiac Crawford for Howard Boss Motorsports, running in the DP class, finishing 16th in class and 50th overall. Remaining a car owner in the Busch and the Nationwide Series until 2013, becoming a racing commentator and analyst for ESPN and ABC from 2006 through 2014, and then transitioned to radio as the lead booth announcer and analyst for the Motor Racing Network, the same year that Rusty was voted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame. In 2023, Wallace was named one of NASCAR's 75 greatest drivers. So in 706 NASCAR Cup Series starts, Wallace scored 36 poles, 55 wins, 202 top 5s, and 349 top 10s, winning the 1989 NASCAR Cup Series championship. In 42 Busch Series starts, Wallace scored 2 poles, 0 wins, 8 top 5s, and 18 top 10s, with the best points finish of 32nd in 1987. In 1 Craftsman Truck Series start, Wallace scored a top 10. Then in 36 IROC Series starts, Wallace scored 4 wins, 17 top 5s, and 34 top 10s, winning the 1991 IROC Series championship. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.